All right, guys, it's a Wednesday, so that means that you should be creating 5 different addition problems that are addition of fractions with different denominators. That means that before you add them together, you're gonna have to change the denominators to make them the same. So if you don't wanna create your own problems, you're in the right spot because you can just use mine by just pausing the screen, solving on your own, and then restarting it before you hear the answer. So here's your first problem. 3/9 plus 3/3. All right, so for this one, you have to think, what can I do to either of these denominators to make them the same as the other one? So I know that 9 is a multiple of 3. So I'm gonna multiply something times 3 to get 9. So I am going to take 3/3 times, and just like we did on yesterday's problems, you're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. So I know that 3 times 3 is what's going to give me 9. So I'm going to multiply each of those by 3. That is a lot of 3's on this page, but that is going to make this 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we're going to have 3/9 plus 9/9 now. So since the denominators are the same, you can go ahead and add those together. So the denominator stays the same throughout the whole process now. So then it becomes, the denominator down here is 9, and 9 plus 3 is 12. I can't leave it like that because that is an improper fraction. So I have to change it to a mixed number. So I'm gonna break apart 12/9 using my number bond, and I'm going to pull out 9/9. And then what would be left over is the 3/9. So that would give me 1 and 3/9. Now, if you skipped that step because you saw up here that 9/9 equals 1, you can go ahead and do that as well. So then you have 1 plus 3/9, which again gives you 3/9. Now, if you're even a step further than that, you might have noticed that up here, and you could have changed 3/3 to 1. And 1 plus 3/9, again, is 1 and 3/9. So either any of the 3 ways that you just did that works, as long as you get 1 and 3/9 as your answer. Now, I know we touched on it just a little bit at the end, right before we got banned from school. We talked about simplifying the fraction. So can you think about any number that I can divide the top and the bottom by here? So I can divide both of these by 3, right? If I divide 3 divided by 3 and 9 divided by 3, I'm going to get 1 and 1/3. So any of those answers would work. 1 and 1/3 or 1 and 3/9. Any way you got it. Awesome, so if you got that one right, that was kind of a tricky one to start with. Go ahead and virtual high five. All right, moving on. I have 1/2 plus 6/12. All right, so for this one, I'm gonna have to change one of the denominators because they are not the same, right? And so I know that 12 is a multiple of 2. So I'm gonna change the 1/2 here to get the denominator of 12. So I have to think about what times 2 is going to get me that 12. So I'm gonna write 1/2. And then remember, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top to get an equivalent fraction. So 1/2 times 6 and 6. So that's gonna give us, 6/12. So now I have 6/12 plus 6/12, which I know is going to be 12/12, because 6 plus 6 is 12. The denominator stays the same. And we know, just like we just talked about, 12/12 equals 1. So my answer is 1. 1 whole. Awesome. All right, your next one is 2/4 plus 3/8. All right, again, I'm gonna have to change the denominator on one of these because I know that 8 is a multiple of 4, so I just have to change one of them because I can get 8 for this one. So I'm going to change the 2/4 I'm going to multiply them both by 2. Just like that. And 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. So 4/8 is, remember, it's replacing the 2 4s, so 4/8 plus 3/8, and then 8 stays the same on the denominator, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Now, this is my final answer because I know I can't simplify because I can't divide the top and the bottom by the same number, and there's less on top, which means that it's just a normal fraction. It's not improper. So 7/8 is your answer. And you are already halfway done. Here we go. All right, your next one, this one is a little bit trickier, is 6/7 plus 4/14. Go ahead and solve. All right, so for this one, I have to change my denominator for the 7s because I know that 14 is a multiple of 7. So I'm going to change the 6/7 to be in the 14ths. Whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. So I'm going to multiply both of them by 2. And I'm going to get 12/14. And I'm going to add that with 4/14. So 12 plus 4 is 16. My denominator stays the same, which is 14. So I cannot leave this one like this because it is an improper fraction. There is more on top than bottom, which means I can take out a whole number. So I'm going to create my number bond, and I'm going to take out 14/14 because that's one whole. And then what would be left over is 2/14. So that makes my answer 1 and 2/14. And then if you're thinking ahead, remember this is what we just started to do this before we left school, but we're gonna divide the top and the bottom by the same number to simplify. So that's a fancy word called simplify, which means you're making the numbers as small as you can. And they're the same fraction because you're dividing by the same number on the top and the bottom, just like we multiply the division the opposite way. So you're gonna divide the top and the bottom. I noticed that you can divide the top and the bottom by 2. So I'm going to get 1 and 1/7 as my final answer. For right now, I would accept 1 and 2/14 as your final answer, but next year, in 5th grade, they're gonna want you to simplify all the way to 1 and 1/7. All right, we're already on our last one. So it's 3/5 plus 4/8. All right, this one's a little bit trickier, so I'm curious to see which of you who gets this one right, because you can't just change one of them this time, because nothing times 5 gives you 8 and nothing times 8 gives you 5. So you're gonna have to do a little bit extra work here. We're gonna have to change both of them to find a common denominator. So for this one, I'm gonna just take 5 times 8 and 8 times 5. I'm gonna multiply by the opposite denominator. I know we touched on that just a little bit in class, but the opposite denominator is what I'm going to multiply by. So for 3/5, that means I'm gonna multiply the top and the bottom by 8. And then for 4/8, I'm gonna multiply the top and the bottom by 5, the opposite denominator. So 3 times 8, oh my goodness, is 24. And 5 times 8 is 40. Oh my goodness, we have 24/40. Whoa. And then 4 times 5 is 20. And 8 times 5 is 40. So now our denominators are the same. We have 24/40 and 20/40. So we can add those two together now because you can only add fractions that have the same denominator. So what I'm going to do now is add 24 plus 20, which I know that is going to be 44/40. 40th. Look at all that. But as you can see, this is an improper fraction, right? I can't leave it like that. It's too messy. So I'm going to take out the whole number. And the whole number, even all the way at 40, is 40 40ths. Oh my goodness. And then what's left over, 44 minus 40, is 4 40ths. So this 40 40ths, oh, that sounds funny. 40 40ths is going to give us 1, that 1 whole. And then what's left over is the 4 40ths. Now again, I know I can divide this one by the same number, so I'm going to try to simplify it. Oh, I'm going to put my hands over it. So I'm going to divide the top and the bottom both by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 40 divided by 4 is 10. And then I'm going to make my 1. So my final answer is a much prettier 1 1/10. All right, guys, that was a tricky one, so make sure you double check your work. All right, and if you got that last one correct, send me a message on Class Dojo or comment on today's online learning page and tell me that you got that one correct, because that one was tricky. All right, guys, see you tomorrow.